vision for a blockchain transformation and pick up key tips on how investors identify and select suitable companies for investment. So over to you, Mr. JP.
Thank you, Aina and Alif, and hello everyone. Very happy and delighted to play a double role of a co-organizer along with a moderator of a panel, which is one of my favorite. And happy to welcome our fellow panelists, Mr. Bikesh Lakshishan from 1337 Ventures, Mr. Adam from Cradle Fund, and Aslin Waris from Javel Digital. Welcome everyone and our wonderful audience. I would like to highlight my journey to Malaysia during this blockchain and crypto business regulatory friendliness came up. So since 2013, I am into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain, which was a primary use case of the blockchain industry. And then I was looking forward for settling my company BlockOn as a regional headquarters in Southeast Asia. And I have traveled to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. I even have been to Korea, Japan. And later on in 2018, we came in touch with Mr. Ibrahim and the winning team of IIBB, who were planning this blockchain village at Medini. And the idea was to enhancing the incubation ecosystem that enriches the economy by enhancing education, empowering entrepreneur. I myself have been a serial entrepreneur with 30 plus ventures in past 2 decades. And of course, encasing on employment of skilled people. And I was very happy to see that Khazana has invested into IIB, and IIB wanted to do this specific venture called Blockchain Village Medini. And apart from that, we also organized Malaysia Blockchain Week and had an honor to work with ex-Prime Minister Tun Mahathir Mohamad on IR 4.0 meets blockchain. So there's a lot of things happening about blockchain and cryptocurrency in Malaysia. But in today's panel, I'm going to have more clarity through our veteran and experts over here. So I'd like to invite each of my panelists to introduce themselves and give a quick intro what they're doing in the space. So to start with, Mr. Bikesh Lakshishan. Sure.
Hi, I'm Bikesh from Lead Ventures, spelled 1337 Ventures. We're an early stage investor with no specific vertical. We occasionally run some kind of thematic batches with corporates like FWD to run an InsurTech accelerator at the moment. Rest of the time we run online accelerator programs is very generic. We do like a lot of fintech. You've seen us invest in a lot of early stage fintech deals like Verkle, Finery, Pod, Senang, BESC, Kapitani, and Blue Duck. We love doubling down on the startups and helping them continue fundraise. At the moment, we also have the ECF license to help us raise close to 20 million ringgit now on a crowd basis for equity. That's what we do.
Great. And next, I would like to hear from Mr. Adam.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Ramske. I'm attached to Cradle Fund, Nirmohat. We are a government agency that funds startups since 2003. We funded over 1,000 plus startups throughout that time period. And we fund technology-based startups. So pretty much we are agnostic when it comes to industry, but it has to be technology. So we've got 2 grants going on right now. The first is the CIP Ignite, a grant that goes up to 500,000 ringgit, and another grant, the CIP Accelerate, that goes up to 2 million ringgit. Yeah.
Great. And next, I would like to hear from Azli.
Hi, everyone. I'm Azli Mares. I'm from Jewel Digital Ventures. We are established as part of PNB, Pemodalan Nasional Berhad Digital Business Strategy in 2018, and we've incorporated in 2019. So what we do is actually we explore, incubate, and grow innovations in the fintech space to help drive wealth creation of Malaysia. So what we do is also we do venture build and also venture invest. for venture build, we create digital products for the group. And these initiatives actually to kickstart disruptive businesses within the fintech and digital asset management space for the group. For venture investment, we do invest in startups as well. One of the startups that is actually under our umbrella is Raise Malaysia, a robo-advisor that was actually launched last year with a value prop of spare change management. So JDT invests in regional startups with high growth trajectory that is basically focused again on wealth creation or asset management for now.
Great. So while everyone is investing, my company BlockOn Capital also have invested in 15 plus blockchain and cryptocurrency startup in the span of last 3 years, that's 2018 to 2021. Now I would like to know from Mr. Bikesh, do you have any active blockchain or cryptocurrency company in your portfolio?
Yeah, we actually have one. We have invested in a blockchain startup about 2.5-3 years ago. It's called EPC Blockchain. But of course, it's not a token round, it's into equity itself. The team is working to help organizations monitor carbon savings. Then eventually they want to operate now a carbon trading marketplace. So the blockchain component was very integral in terms of proving that the audit was kind of sound and you could basically get those carbon savings actually kind of checked and authorized and safe to say it's something you could trade in a marketplace, because you normally would audit that in a very offline manner. It's a very tedious process, so they kind of digitize the whole process using the blockchain. So they are now kind of looking at tokenizing those carbon credits, and we are going to be looking at doing a funding round using tokens. So we're excited about that, to be part of that journey. Mm-hmm.
Great. Happy to know that you invested in equity round and now considering token round as well. Now, I'd like to know from Mr. Adam about Cradle's investment philosophy. And do you have any active blockchain or cryptocurrency investment in your portfolio?
Okay, so with Cradle's investment philosophy, we look at high potential startups, at early stage startups. That's the first thing. And we stand guided by the technology trajectory of the country. Last December, just to share with you, the Ministry of Science launched the 10-10 STIE framework, Science, Technology, Innovation and Economy framework, which outlines 10 social drivers and 10 technology drivers. And one of these technology drivers is blockchain. And just to share, we funded a blockchain company recently called Regolf Technologies. However, we've yet to fund any companies that's involved in crypto just yet. So hopefully with more awareness, more participation in from the industry players and all, we could be looking at investing into these areas in the future.
Great. So everyone has at least one blockchain active investment. And now I'd like to know from Azlin, does your organization have incubated, accelerated, or ever invested into crypto or blockchain startup?
Okay, hi, JP. So basically, in terms of investment in crypto companies, not at this point in time, but Raise Malaysia is actually a robo-advisor that has a crypto asset class, right? So how a robo-advisor functions is it allows diversification, low cost of products that is basically not pretty much mainstream, it's passive investment. So when we actually look into the group's DNA, the group's DNA of PNB, ASNB is unit trust, right? So one of the ways that we can actually explore what would be the new asset management asset class or a form of diversification of what actually the current users want is by investment. So that's why we went ahead with investing in Raise Malaysia since last year. So Raise, what's interesting with Raise is Raise holds a portfolio of Bitcoin, which is the 7th portfolio that can be custom, right? So how it does is when a user is onboarded, they go through a risk profile, if it's aggressive or conservative. So for Raise Australia, the holding company, it has up to 7 profiles, whereas Malaysia is still 3. But we're still, the team is still learning from how the traction is from Australia market, for example, that can actually be brought down or learn and then introduced in Malaysia, right? So raise potentially could have an asset class that is a Bitcoin or crypto in years to come. We don't know. We're actually testing because at this point in time, the asset class is still ASMB fund. So yeah. So back to your question is
I got your answer. Not directly, but you invested in a startup which has a convergence of their own robo-advisory, and one of the asset classes that is crypto.
That's right.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So I'm very happy to hear from our earlier panelists when Harpreet was moderating the panel. Farah from BlockOn was there, Mr. Fatah from Standards was there. And we heard that one of the barriers in bringing investors or adopting the cryptocurrency and blockchain in any nation is definitely the regulatory environment. And I personally believe that is always regulator versus innovator. Innovator would go and do something like an Uber, where innovator will definitely look forward for regulators to come and regulate at a later stage. Nobody wanted the Airbnb, but Airbnb happened. And like internet revolution, the crypto revolution is right over here. And my observation being in Malaysia is interoperability of the various agencies, whether it's government, public sector, and industry, academia, and of course, the association can bring this thing together to speed up the fuel of fundraising for people. So my next question to everyone, starting in the same sequence as before, is do you think the crypto friendliness or a blockchain friendliness of Malaysia is enough to let retail investors or VCs to get into the space? Is Malaysia crypto friendly? The last conversation was more about like a crypto, but people discussed about more like a blockchain friendly. So do you think that the startup that you are investing or the other VCs are co-investing with you, they are confident of investing into that, or the space is still crawling and emerging? Mr. Vikas?
So I guess we see that, SC is already, so Securities Commission has already put out the call for people to apply for the IEO operator license. You have the DEX licenses. So it's definitely something that's being regulated. The underlining is, of course, blockchain, everybody's fine with that. So the fact that that's already happening and there's announcements to be really soon. So I guess we are on the trajectory to say that it is happening, like it or not. In terms of, do we have the companies that will be able to raise that threshold? I mean, there were some caveats, right? A company needs to have a paid up capital of minimum 500,000 ringgit. So how many startups have that? I've not seen that many that come across us that has that. The limit of having a raise of 100 million, which again, the caveat for that, it's 20 times your paid up capital. So that means you need at least a 5 million paid up capital. So, who has that in terms of startups? Maybe some of the bigger ones, the guys who are doing their P2P lending and they want to find some new ways to raise capital without giving away equity. And I think the IEO thing is interesting. It's something that you could say even rivals your stock market in terms of the ACE market, right? You can raise that kind of thresholds. So we are getting there. We've got the regulations on our side. I think that will protect retail investors, unlike ICO, which was very scammy. And then IEO now becomes, yes, it's a little bit more rigid, but because you have those check and balances in place, you will see more people trying to try it out. Whether we've got enough retail investors to try, that I'm doubting. Because if you look at it, because we run an ETF license, right? So out of all the registered investors, this is from the annual report, so across all, 66% of them are retail, and then 24% around angels, and then maybe 10% are sophisticated. But if you look at the money spent, over 60%, all the funds are coming from the sophisticated side of things, not really the retail. Retail puts in really small. So I think looking at the IEO approach of the crypto approach, it's still going to be the same. It's going to be very institutionalized. They put money in. the retail are still trying to figure out. And I don't think they can wrap their heads around understanding the whole tokenization process, and what more the white papers, the yellow papers, would they be able to comprehend that? So it all depends on the startups, how they make it easier as a barrier of entry for people to understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting that SEC came up with the IEO regulation, which is one of its kind, at least in our region. Most of the countries were busy regulating ICO, or like the neighboring country, Singapore, had raised over $1 billion during the ICO boom. And then there are countries, or even our Labuan loves STO. So ICO, STO, or IDO are multiple ways of raising funds over there. I personally believe like in tourism industry of inbound tourist and outbound tourist. So while you talk about blockchain or crypto investment, especially in the ICO, IEO, or IDO round, there are investors who are local investors investing into a specific startup, but there is a global investment coming in a startup. So most of the countries haven't focused on bringing foreign investment via IEO, STO, or ICO platform, where Singapore got over $1 billion worth of investment, and especially when the fundraising company do not have even a basic facility to open a bank account. So that was something where Singapore, like in fintech space, has moved very far away. I would like to ask Mr. Adam that do you foresee that from IEO in Malaysia and STO in Labuan, I mean, it's going to be a game changer for local investors to invest, or you foresee a lot of foreign investment coming in once the space is totally regulated?
Okay, so when it comes to all this regulation and with the introduction of the IEO framework and the digital assets framework by SC and all, there is some regulation in place already in the ecosystem. In fact, as you know, the SC is taking things seriously when it comes to protecting the retail investors. As of last month, they kind of banned Binance, and Singapore made the same decision yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, to ban Binance as well. Okay, and here is where a lot of awareness needs to be done when it comes to retail investors. The retail investors needs to understand that if they were to invest into all this asset class and cryptocurrencies and all, that to a certain extent, it is safe for them to invest in it. That is one thing. However, with the regulations progressing, we're going to see a few more things that could, if it gets strict, right? We're going to go seeing that more foreign investors will reluctant to invest in the country. However, if you see there's a relaxation in the regulations, then you could be looking at more retail investors, more foreign investors investing into the country. But here's the thing, it needs to be a balance between the regulation and what the industry really needs. This is where I believe that industry players, ecosystem players needs to come together as a single voice and discuss and talk and, you know, come up with a middle ground solution where it works both for the policymakers at the same time for the industry players, because this is important. You do not want a regulation that is too restrictive for investors to come into. At the same time, you do not want a regulation that is lax, that, you know, a lot of, like I echo what Bikesh just said, a lot of scammy deals going through. So it needs to be a certain level of balance there. Yeah.
Yeah, you pointed really right. Like Mr. Bikesh said, that the entry level for entering into IEO and DEX are so high that the early stage startup do not have luxury of that kind of funding. At the same time, if they want to pull in the retail investment via the method of IEO, ICO, or STO, which comes usually from other countries or the neighboring countries, the restrictions are so high that people feel that it's not that regulated.
So sorry, just to jump the gun. So I guess that's where, someone is fundraising. Maybe we'll talk about this later. You have to know which instruments you can use. So if you're early stage and you want to get in, so IEO is great because you don't give away equity, but it doesn't mean that you say, I don't need to give away equity ever. So how do you still work with angels, early stage investors like ourselves who will take risks on you? And also maybe ECF to do that equity raise to get past that hurdle of saying, let me get something going, let me get the resources I need to write the white paper, do a POC, and that's equity enabled. And then you can have that paid up capital. And then when you've proven your track record, like an MVP, go to market, product market fit, then you go for an IEO and basically raise that bigger amount. And you're saying it's not about equity anymore. It's just that tokens, right? That gives returns back to people. So at least they also get confidence you have some kind of capital and have a runway of success. If not, you'll be thinking of giving away millions to this company who's maybe not even have a runway of 18 months, 12 months, and that's very risky. So you'll have to basically do a couple of those things to get towards that fundraise. Sorry, Aslin.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping in. Yeah. So I would like to ask Aslin, like retail investors usually look forward for that 100x and going to the moon for the token price and other things. And regulator want them that no, their investment should be regulated. So if you want to go for a very regulated investment, then the return would be the banking standard or the normal one. So according to your organization, do you love token round of investments? And do you think that the robo-advisory company that you have invested with has a future to get retail investors who are looking forward for investing in the tokens?
Okay, from our experience, being one of the pioneers for the robo license in Malaysia, Brace was actually the first batch that was actually announced back in 2020, but they got their approval in principle 6 months before launch in 2019, right? So we personally feel from our experience, I think our regulators SC has been very cooperative, very supportive, in a sense that, of course, because they are on their standpoint, is always protecting the investors, right? So of course, in terms of documentation has got to be there to make sure that the business is sustainable and it's actually safe, secured. But throughout the whole journey, they have been very, very supportive, right? So is actually what we want as actually a fintech or startup in a highly regulated entity, which is actually asset management, right? One thing I just wanted to point out in terms of regulation in Malaysia is, as compared to Singapore, it has only one regulator, which is the monetary asset entity, right? MES, right? Whereas Malaysia, when it comes to payment, wallets, insurance, is actually governed by BNM. When it comes to capital market, it's actually by SC. It adds to that complexity because it's actually in isolation, independent on its own, right? So we hope that maybe to make it a better ease, maybe at some point in future, maybe a convergence or something like that, right? But if at all, the current BNM or even current SC, they are functioning very well. I mean, for us in PNB, we are actually regulated by SC. So far, they have been very supportive. They are very, we are always, conversation is always very fluid with them, and they give that guidance for us as well.
Okay. I wish I had a luxury of time to discuss more. I am lapped up with less than 5 minutes, so I would like to ask quickly to all of the analysts, since we have mentioned the Binance twice, in the recent conversation. Cryptocurrency exchanges have a huge appreciation due to rising adoption among retail investors. And it was surprising when Coinbase came up with their IPO and got listed on NASDAQ with a hoping valuation of 150 billion, which when you compare with companies like Facebook or Apple or any other company which had gone to NASDAQ, is pretty high, being a crypto-friendly country. America has over 2,200 ATMs, and there are a lot of payment and fintech companies that accept crypto like Reward or Robinhood and other people are doing. So there are a lot of unicorns coming out, decacons and companies with 100 billion valuation. Even in India, the company, namely CoinDCX, has recently become the 43rd unicorn of India without being regulated by any of the regulator in India. So do you see that very soon there would be a company in Malaysia that has a dual future, one on the coin market cap, where the token round goes to top 100 or 200. And of course, they get listed on a stock exchange and they have another fortune as well. So do you think the driving of cryptocurrency and blockchain can lead to some unicorn in our nation, I mean in Malaysia, like it happened in Coinbase or Singapore or many other countries where unicorns are created out of crypto? Do you foresee that?
So I would love to see that. I mean, it took us forever to find one unicorn, or just custom an amazing startup anyway. So if this can facilitate that, then yes. But is it going to be any easier? No. I mean, if you look at all the companies that are IPOing, they're so traditional, right? We have a whole slew of incumbents here, although some of them are doing amazing revenues. If you just talk about the mid-tier companies in our country, they do anywhere between 20 million to 500 million. And we work with some of them for some of our training programs. So we know they exist. But is this person going to go on an IEO? Does this person even know how to tokenize their business? So they will not. So those guys, maybe they're not ready. But there's the opportunity then, right? We talk about digital transformation so much. Could these companies figure out how to tokenize their industries? And this could be the agriculture world, it could be the plantation world, it could be these large property developers. I think there's an avenue for them to basically figure out tokenization. So I think that will be the best use cases. And those use cases, because it's not so much of this full-blown digital savvy startups where retail don't understand that, it's still talking about conventional with a tokenization approach. I think that will be the trick to get retail in. And the fact they can fractionalize and make a per ticket price very small and you can leverage the crowd, they will feel like, oh, I'm just going to put in a few hundred rather than a lot is going to cost you a couple of, look at what happened with Mr. DIY and all, right? The lots weren't that small and you could even get a lot. So maybe now with such an approach with IEO, this is truly democratized. Everyone could say, if Mr. DIY or even CTOS did that, I mean, I could even get CTOS and I put in a few lots. So this would truly democratize and retail might like that approach. So I think this could make a whole generation of new unicorns out there for sure. We're using this approach.
Right. Great. Now 1 minute each, including myself as well. So Adam, I would like to know, out of thousands of investments that Cradle has supported, do you foresee that Cradle can have a vision of having any crypto unicorn or a blockchain unicorn? Do you think that this is possible? Because USD Coinbase happened over there.
Okay, so that's a tough question to ask online. Okay, here's the thing. We are, open to all types of technologies and things like that. If a particular company comes, with crypto and blockchain and things like that, and they're viable, they have good traction, the founders are great and all, I do not foresee any reason for us to turn them down. And when it comes to unicorns, like we just had our first unicorn, Kasem, and I'm pretty sure there's more to come. In fact, the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Adam Baber, announced that we'll be looking at producing 5 unicorns by 2025. So let's hope one of them is in this area. Yeah.
Very happy to hear from you. And Azlin, what's your call on this?
Okay, so basically JP and everyone, PNB does basically investment in strategic companies, and in terms of ticket size, it's quite large, right? Hence the setup of JDB that would basically allow us of the group to explore cutting edge new technologies that could basically add strategic value to the long-term strategy of PNB. So it's actually it's either yes or no. We are exploring. So we welcome a lot of proposals that comes our way when it comes to blockchain, when it comes to robo-advisors, or even crypto exchange, right? So we do get that, right? And we're assessing them. At the end of the day, what the group wants to see is it has got to basically, it's a marry, right? When you actually invest, it has got to be in line with the long-term strategy plan of PNB. as a unique case for raise, it distributes ASMB funds. So it's actually a very good synergy in that sense of in that point of view, right? And it's also expanding the company in the region. As of now, they're also looking to expanding to Thailand and Vietnam. So yes, I mean, for us, when I say that it's asset management or value, what do you call that, wealth creation, but we do want to actually explore, and we are open up to talk to those in the blockchain or crypto players.
Great. So at the end of our conversation, before we end up, I would like to hear one line from everyone. How can we speed up the fundraising process for startups? What's your piece of advice? What startups to do to raise via crypto or blockchain?
I think the fundamentals hold. The fundamentals hold in all this, right? It's do things that matter. So if you're trying to just jump on the bandwagon of IEO and raise 100 million because you can, anyone and everyone will sniff that. And that's the reason why investors don't reply your blockchain and crypto startup emails. I mean, that's a fact. But when we see the premise is something really solid, saying, holy crap, this is going to give people access, this is going to make a difference, and they're leveraging the reason why you're doing it as a blockchain and the tokenization makes sense, then of course we're going to give you our money. Why wouldn't we? We want to grow big with you, right? So yeah, keep it to the basics.
Thank you. Adam?
I totally agree with what Bikash just said. The fundamentals has to be strong. It needs to be viable in the sense that, you know, people confident in putting their money into this business. That's the thing. And with everything that has been said and discussed today, I think there's huge potential for blockchain, for crypto to take Malaysia to the next step. And if, you know, things work out, you know, this could be something huge that we can leverage on, especially the startup ecosystem.
Great. And what's a piece of advice, Azreen, to our startups?
Yeah, so for startup, what we see is we've seen a lot of, I mean, excuse if I term it incorrectly, fads, FOMOs, and all that, right? So it's a lot of fear of missing out, a lot of fads. Actually, we want to see startups that actually contribute. For us, it's really about the rakyat, about the nation. So at the end of the day, it's value creation for a very long time. And it iterates, it changes every now and then to make it very current, right? So we're looking for that, the X factor, like we call it, right? Yeah, so keep on, being current, inventful, show some very good use cases. At the end of the day, we want to see some traction. Because in technology, things changes, right? So what would be very hot last year might not be actually relevant now, right? So we want to see that to be in place for blockchain and crypto. I personally have invested or supported the DEX exchange. I've invested in crypto, and it's giving basically even a typical retail investor like me huge upside, right? So we want to see that that is actually sustainable and it's long term. At the moment now, it's still very flip-flop. It soars and it actually goes down. So we want to see it a bit stable to actually invest or be part of the group's offering.
Great. So in addition to what everyone has said, I personally believe that the first goal of every entrepreneur, which is the first thing in life they want to do, is get it funded. And I believe that startup should not focus on getting funded, but they should focus on solving a problem that will be really the thing VCs will be looking for. So if your startup is not solving any problem and you are just here to raise, funds, everyone's LinkedIn is full with at least 10 to 20 messages per day stating that, hey, I have this startup, that startup. But like Vikash said, you must see that holy crap thing. Wow, this is where we really want to invest. So I wish that startups work on solving the problem. And there are many problems, like SDG has its own 17 goals. There is a problem center around there. There are a lot of problems in real life, which everyone can take up. So currently I see the entire startup ecosystem is working in silos. Incubators, accelerators, entrepreneurs, the startup, government, mentors, educators, and all other collaborative partners are not working on a common platform, and they are totally working fragmented. So if a Silicon Valley based startup wish to reach out to someone in Malaysia, or some Malaysian startup want to go to Middle East, like during college days, you had a student exchange program. But over here, we don't have such startup exchange program, and a lot of great things happening, especially in the blockchain and crypto world. So most of the token rounds are filled by those few seed round of VCs, and then it comes to you at the round where there's just an allocation. So ultimately, when it hits to an exchange like Binance or the secondary market, the token price or the equity or valuation of startup goes very high. So the platforms like ECF, what Mr. Bikash has mentioned, can help people to invest into startup at a right stage. And with agencies like Cradle or other co-investing VCs, I believe that Malaysian startups has a long way to go, especially in cryptocurrency and blockchain field. We do have promising startups like CoinGecko is from Malaysia. Ethercan also have been born out of Malaysia. There are many great companies in cryptocurrency space. So I wish that when the world opens up, I come back to Malaysia again, and we can have Ignite 2022, the next event, as a real world physical event, and we all will definitely have more funding happening and more success stories thereafter. There are a few questions that have been asked by the audience, but I do not have a luxury of time, so maybe we'll handle these offline. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Vikesh, Mr. Adam, and Aslin, and our wonderful audience. And yes, our MC, Aina, and